Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out here this afternoon on the spring day. We're getting our April showers for May flowers, we hope, here. But we're here to sign a law into ordinance whose aim is to expand accessibility and affordability for childcare in our city and its realities that too often and for too long have challenged and stressed working families. So this is a really important day for the city to take this on that we haven't in any way before. Now, COVID-19 really magnified these already established challenges and stressors in caring for our smallest and most loved residents, and the Metro Council recognized the emergency, and it was with way too many families, especially women, on top of the pandemic emergency, and answered their calls by working with the city's planning and design services team, listening and acting unanimously on this. So that's why we're here this afternoon. It's good work, and all this expression of local representation, I think, is government at its best when we really identified with the problem that came with the pandemic that took so many women out of the workforce. So I'm really honored to sign my name to this first step in making things better for our Louisville families needing child care, and to speak today with the people who work to make this a new reality. Accessible and affordable child care is at the heart of all of our city's core values. So we're talking about the health of our people and our families and their futures, as well as the overall economic health of the city. We're also talking about how lifelong learning begins at very young ages and how compassion unites and underscores the interdependence that we all have with each and every one of us. And you might be saying, well, I don't have any kids, this doesn't impact me. That would be wrong. Even if you don't have children, this affects you too. So consider that 45% of surveyed Kentucky parents had to quit a job, decline a job, or greatly change a job because of child care issues over more than a year during the pandemic. And what did that mean to our workplaces with individual skill sets removed from our collective gifts, and how people oftentimes move behind when they're out of the workplace for a couple years? Consider that 100,000 women in Kentucky left the workforce during the pandemic because of child care issues and school closures. Think about the earning power of those families and how they were impacted with the loss of an income, and no telling how it affected other choices that they had to make as well, and they weren't good choices. And though some of our child care centers that closed during the pandemic have reopened, there's some 10% that didn't reopen in Jefferson County. When we think about this through an equity lens, as we do with all of our decisions here, we note that there are fewer child care options for children and families in the south and west ends of our city, and this law is meant to change that too. We don't want any of our parents feeling hopeless and helpless about child care, and there was a lot of that during the pandemic, and it still exists. We want to have a functioning child care landscape for Louisville's residents, and we believe we can improve and expand upon what we have with this new law. We realize, of course, that this new law is not going to solve everything, but it's an important first step for putting home-based child care and child care centers closer to where people live and work, with standards built in to safeguard children and to honor neighborhood safety and integrity. I'd like to welcome Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur. He's not going to speak, but thank you for being with us, Councilman. We appreciate that. But who is going to speak is Councilwoman Cassie Chamber Armstrong, who was the driving force and major champion behind this legislation. Councilwoman?
Good afternoon. And I want to start with some thank yous as well, particularly to my amazing co-sponsor, Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, who was really essential to the success of this. Also, the great advocates standing behind me, including folks from Metro United Way and 4C, and also the mayor, the Office of Planning and Design, particularly Joel and Emily, for all of the great work that they've done. This ordinance is personal to me, because I've lived the challenges of our broken childcare system along tens of thousands of other Louisville moms. In 2019, just before the pandemic hit, I was pregnant with my first child. I told a good friend, one of the first that I had told my news, and her first question that she asked me was about daycare. "Are you on a list?" she asked. "You better start calling. I know you're only 12 weeks pregnant, but trust me, you need to get on a list." At the time, I thought she was exaggerating. But later, when I started to try to find childcare options, I realized she was right. Most places I called were already full for the upcoming year. Some places told me they had a 2-year waiting list. Other places told me that they could provide care for a day or two each week, but they didn't have any full-time slots available. Eventually, I was lucky enough to be able to find care, cobbling together some time at a child care center and a family child care home. But it was only after hours of searching, calling, and cobbling together my own options. Even with all the privileges I had, time, flexibility, the ability to pay the astronomical costs of market rate childcare, it was a challenging and stressful ordeal for my family. And this was before the pandemic hit, and our city lost almost 10% of its childcare capacity. Today, we know that families with young children are struggling like never before. We've all heard the statistic about 100,000 Kentucky women leaving the workforce because of childcare issues. But I want to take a moment to sit with that. There are only 12 sports stadiums in the entire world that are large enough to hold 100,000 people. The 100,000 moms who are out of our workforce solely because of childcare issues could almost fill Cardinal Stadium twice. Access to childcare is something that impacts everyone in society, whether you are a parent yourself or not. Access to high-quality care for kids is an educational issue, as it ensures our kids have a safe and stimulating place to go during the years that their brains are changing and growing the most. It is an equity issue, as we know that families without resources are the most likely to be shut out of early educational care and opportunities. It is a workforce issue, because without reliable care, parents like me can't work, and businesses can't find employees. That's why this ordinance, which will increase access to childcare by eliminating the outdated and restrictive zoning that was a barrier, is so important. It makes it easier for childcare centers to be located near where people live and where they work, and expands access to both center-based care as well as home-based care. It gives families the flexibility to choose a childcare option that will work for them. And it does this while protecting our neighborhoods by maintaining special standards to ensure that the presence of childcare is a benefit and not a burden. I'm so thankful to my colleagues on Metro Council for understanding the importance of access to childcare and for unanimously voting to support this ordinance. I hope that the many working families out there with young children see this as a sign of hope. This isn't going to fix every problem, but it's a first step, and we are just getting started. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman, appreciate your leadership on this. Councilman, thank you as well. Next, Dawn Thompson is going to speak to us. She is the Assistant Director of 4C. Dawn?
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank Metro Council for unanimously passing this bill. This is removing a huge barrier for childcare providers across the city. We have so many areas in Louisville that do not have the childcare resources available to care for the children that are in those areas. And when you talk with a mom that has to take 2 buses and pray that she gets there on time to be able to just drop her child off at childcare before she can turn around and go to work for the day, I can't imagine how difficult that would be. So this will give us opportunities to have childcare in the areas of where parents live and work. Makes their life a little easier knowing that their child is in quality care. We appreciate the help that we had from planning and design services, and of course, Councilwoman Cassie Chamber Armstrong and Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dawn. And next, Amanda Fletcher. She's a family child care home provider, so she really understands what all the issues here with this bill. So, Amanda?
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Fletcher. I'm a home family child care provider in District 2. Thank you for having me today to speak. I've been a provider for 2 years here in Louisville. Been here, Louisville, for 10 years. I've been working with me and my mom, been working together with the child care business. She's been working with the child care business also for 20 years now, off and on. And I would like to say that in honor to have such great parents and kids, children that we serve, it helps us get a better understanding and helping them, be able to be ready for pre-K, or just kids that we have now that's school age, that we're helping them more if they need help, after school wise or before school. We do run a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week child care program, and it helps a lot more with parents that needs that 24-hour service, because we have parents that works overnight, like say some parents that work at Ford or big companies that work warehouse overnight. It helps the parents be able to have that security to where they can bring their kids and be able to have that service for a home daycare and still be able to go to work. I would also like to say that it has been a struggle pretty much during the pandemic. We was open during the pandemic, but now we're having more parents come now that is not so much over, but we still had the pandemic, but we're having more parents come now, even though a lot of daycares are not open. We have some home daycares that are open, they're coming over. The zoning that is getting passed today does help with being able to have more kids for a home daycare, especially when it comes to parking and neighbors, some neighbors that might have a problem with child noise and stuff like that. I would like to thank the Metro Council for passing the land development code changes. I want to thank the ordinance sponsors and early childhood champions, the Councilwoman Cassie Chamber Armstrong and Councilman Arthur, and would like to thank Mayor Fischer for continued recognition of the needs for our child care. Thank you.
All right, let's sign this bill here.
Scoot in here.
All right, this is ordinance number 34. It's an ordinance amending the Metro Land Development Code relating to changes in the child care regulations. So you've just heard all the reasons why we're doing this, to make more child care accessible in more locations so that we can help our families out a little bit, especially getting our moms back in the workforce who were so severely impacted during the pandemic, which is not over yet, but it does seem to be improving somewhat. So with that, we'll sign this bill and make it law. There we go.